Hello, first grade. Today we're going to draw a sombrero, or in Spanish, sombrero. And what we're going to create is a beautiful design using all the elements of line that we've already learned. So lines like bumpy line, zigzag line, wavy line, dash lines, dotted line. But before we do that, we have to actually draw the sombrero. Now, my friends, I will be doing this in pencil, and I'm going to press really, really hard so you guys can see on the smartboard. But when you're drawing this on your own, I want you to be very soft when you're drawing. I want it to be very, very soft, so if you have to erase, it will come off a lot easier on your paper. So notice that your paper is very large. It's bigger than our usual size paper. That means, my friends, that we have to draw very, very big, okay? So we're going to start with a big upside down U. So I'm going to show you first what it looks like. I'm going to start towards the middle of my paper, and I'm going to go upside down and create a big letter U, okay? Right at the middle, nice and big. I want you guys to try it very softly on your paper. Next, we're going to draw a line going across our paper. And this is going to be the start of the brim of our sombrero. So starting from one side of my paper all the way across, I am drawing a line. Okay, I want to make sure my upside down U is connected. So I'm just going to make sure that it's touching this line. And I'm going to make sure that my line goes almost all the way across. But I left a little bit of space here and I left a little bit of space here. So go ahead and do that. Next is I am going to do a line that is slightly curved. So it looks a little bit like this, okay? So if you look, it starts right there, right here, and it goes slightly in, slightly curved, okay? I'm gonna do that on both sides. Now, before I draw my next line, I'm gonna take my finger and I'm going to draw an imaginary line, not with my pencil, but with my finger. And I want to see that my line goes all the way to this line. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to softly with your pencil, draw a line all the way across and connect the curved lines. Now that we're done with our drawing of the bottom part of the rim, we have to draw the rest of our hat so it looks like a full sombrero. Sombreros are very large. So starting here, we're going to draw a curved line that goes to about this part of my upside down U. So it will look like this. Notice how curved my line is. Curved. Okay. So from this part, I'm going to lift my pencil and pretend I'm drawing a line. Stop at my upside down U and then draw the other curved line. So you all should have something that looks similar to my hat. Now it's not going to look exactly the same because we're all different artists and that is okay. Just make sure once you have your hat, you fix all of your lines here. Just making it nice and dark for you guys to see. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to use the elements of art, line, and possibly shape to decorate my sombrero. So we looked at some of the Mexican traditions and cultural art, and I want you to use that to help you decorate your sombrero. So remembering what we saw, I am going to go ahead and start adding lines like the loops. Very careful, nice and big. I'm going to draw whatever lines I want on my sombrero. And I'm going to make sure to draw nice and big and neatly. And my friends, you can repeat a line if you want. I like dash lines, so I'm just going to keep adding some lines here. Maybe some swirls. And my dotted line here. Once I filled my upside down U with lines, I'm going to go ahead and fill this part, only this part of my hat, with another line, maybe two lines. So I'm going to start with my zigzag all the way across. And I think I'm going to add some dotted. Okay. Now that I decorated this rim part of my sombrero and the upside down U part of my sombrero, we're going to discuss what Sharpies are for. We're going to trace all of this, and I will be right back. All right, so I went ahead and traced my sombrero. Now this one is a little bit different than the one I just did, but I took my black Sharpie and I copied over all of my pencils so you don't see any pencil marks. They're all hiding under my black marker. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crayons and I'm coloring only my hat. These crayons, and I'm only coloring all of my hat. I am not coloring the space around my hat. So I am going to pick any color I want, and I'm going to start coloring each section very neatly and very carefully because I want this to look super neat and colorful. So here I go with the blue. I'm starting with the top, being careful when I'm coloring not to cross any lines and to stay in the line. As first graders, I want us to really practice hard our coloring skills. Mistakes always happen, but I want us to take our time. If we take our time, less mistakes happen. No white spaces so that it looks nice and neat. Here we go. So that's my first color. My next color. Added some red. Another color. If you remember in our video, Hispanic cultures are filled with vibrant, beautiful, bold colors. A lot of folk art has beautiful reds and greens and blues and colors that remind us of beautiful flowers in nature. So I'm adding all of those beautiful colors that we find in nature. I'm going to go ahead and finish coloring my hat, and I will be right back. All right, my friends, so I finished coloring all of my hat with crayons. Now what we're going to do is all of this white space, well, we want to do something with that. We're going to fill these white spaces up with paint. So we're going to use watercolor or temper cakes. These are temper cakes, which is similar to watercolor. And just to review, when you're using watercolor, you dip your brush in water, okay? And when you dip it in water, we don't tap it. We simply just wet it, take off any extra water, And then using the water that's already on the brush, you're going to swirl it around softly on the dried watercolor. And what's happening is as I swirl this water around, it is waking up that color. That color is dry and asleep, and we want to wake it up. So I am simply swirling it very softly because I don't want my bristles to be ruined. So I'm going to go ahead and wake up my color. And once my colors are awake, I am going to go in and start adding details around my hat. Now, when I want to change my color, I'm going to tap the color on the bottom, my paintbrush on the bottom. I'm going to wipe off any extra softly using the color that's the water that's already there. I'm going to apply it to the next color. I want the yellows and the whites and the greens to stay vibrant and clean. So it's important that you guys learn to make sure that you clean your paintbrush very well every time you use a different color. So I'm waking up my yellow and I'm going to add another shape here on my paper. You can add shapes, you can add lines, you can add anything you want to the space around your hat. Some things to remember that are important when you're using watercolor. Please do not wet your paper so much because, as you guessed it, it will rip. If you keep wetting the same spot, it will rip your paper. So I'm just going to continue adding details around my hat and I'll be right back. So here we have the final image. We have lots of lines, lots of shapes, all done in paint with my watercolor and my paintbrush. I have circles, I have swirls, bumpy lines, zigzag lines, triangles, ovals right here. I have teardrop shapes, I have dashed lines. I have all of this filling up all of my white spaces. Notice how neat and careful I went around my paper, and I was careful not to touch the hat. Okay, I always made sure not to touch the hat and not to paint my hat. So there's no paint on my hat, only crayons. I hope you guys have a fun time creating.